kunja bihari. Gopi jana vallabha girivaradari. Gopi jana vallabha girivaradari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, 8th Canto, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations. Chapter 5, The Demigods Appeal to the Lord. Text 47. Please repeat after me. Kalesha, Bodhi, Alpa, Sarani, Karmani, Vifalani, Va, Dehinam, Vishayartanam, Na, Tataivarpitam, Tvai, Klesha Buralpa Sarani, Karmani Vifalani Va, Dehinam Vishayartanam, Natataivarpitam Tvai, Klesha Buralpa Sarani, Karmani Vifalani Va, Dehinam Vishayartanam, Nataivarpitam Tvai. Please chant. Klesha, hardship. Buddhi, very much. Upa, very little. Sarani, good result. Karmani, activities. Phalani, frustration. Va, either. Dehinam, of persons. Vishaya artanam, who are eager to enjoy the material world. Na, not. Tata, like that. Eva, excuse me. Eva, indeed. Arpitam, dedicated. Tvai, unto your lordship. Translation. Karmīs are always anxious to accumulate wealth for their sense gratification, but for that purpose they must work very hard. Yet even though they work hard, the results are not satisfying. Indeed, sometimes their work results only in frustration. But devotees who have dedicated their lives to the service of the Lord can achieve substantial results without working very hard. These results exceed the devotees' expectations. Purport. We can practically see how the devotees who have dedicated their lives for the service of the Lord in the Krishna consciousness movement are getting immense opportunities for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without working very hard. The Krishna consciousness movement actually started with only 40 rupees, but now it has more than 40 crores worth of property. And all of this opulence has been achieved within 8 or 10 years. No karmi can expect to improve his business so swiftly. And besides that, whatever a karmi acquires is temporary and sometimes frustrating. In Krishna consciousness, however, everything is encouraging and improving. The Krishna consciousness movement is not very popular with the Karmīs because this movement recommends that one refrain from illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. These are restrictions that Karmīs very much dislike. Nonetheless, in the presence of so many enemies, this movement is progressing, going forward without impediments. If the devotees continue to spread this movement, dedicating life and soul to the lotus feet of Krishna, no one will be able to check it. The movement will go forward without limits. Chant Hare Krishna. Om Agyanatipadandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Maditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Makam Kritivachalam Bangam Langayate Girim Yak Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diditadam Vancha Kopiribhisha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation again. Karmīs are always anxious to accumulate wealth for their sense gratification, but for that purpose they must work very hard. Yet, even though they work hard, the results are not satisfying. Indeed, sometimes their work results only in frustration. But the devotees who have dedicated their lives to the service of the Lord can achieve substantial results without working very hard. These results exceed the devotees' expectations. Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada here in the purport is say commenting on his experience. His experience being that he came to America with 40 rupees and now he has 40 crores worth of property. You want to look up that? I don't think everybody's familiar with that crore. You know the crore? how much a crore is. Government could look it up. Crore. 40 crores worth of property.
1 crore is 11,118
Rupees?
like
Rupees? Yeah. 11 million rupees?
dollars.
Dollars. Oh, okay. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada's experience, he's commented on his experience here of coming to America with practically nothing, and then the movement expanding into all over the world. Now, he mentions here, it's kind of interesting, he said, without working very hard. I mean, sometimes when we think of Srila Prabhupada, we think of someone who worked very hard. But he's saying without working hard. So how do we understand that? I mean, if you look at Srila Prabhupada, his life before coming to the U.S. and after coming to the U.S. and going all over the world, it seems like he was working very hard. I mean, just like when he was in New York, if you look at his correspondence, when he first came to New York, he was really reaching out to a lot of people. He was reaching out to his godbrothers. He reached out to devotees in India for help. He was reaching out to people, real estate people in New York. Srila Prabhupada saw certain buildings that he was thinking of renting or owning as a temple, and he was reaching out to these people. He was saying, it doesn't seem like you're using this property, and if I could use it, and he explains what he's doing, trying to spread Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. He's reaching out to Sally Agarwal. He's writing her a letter. Maybe you should open a restaurant in New York City. You become very wealthy, and you also help the movement, Hare Krishna movement. So, I mean, it's a lot of work to reach out to people like that. It's a lot of mental energy. It's not easy to do that. Just try doing it, reaching out to people. It's very difficult. Yes?
The puzzle there is not really very hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's referring to the devotees. So frankly, how the devotees will dedicate their life to the service of the Lord and Krishna movement and getting them into that wouldn't be very hard.
Yes.
I mean, of course, he's the main devotee, isn't it? But you know he's talking about him.
So yeah, and then just throughout Srila Prabhupada's time with us, it seemed like he was really pushing himself heavily. I mean, just devotees talk about how much Srila Prabhupada would sleep. He wouldn't sleep that much. It's very difficult not to sleep that much. I mean, people try it for a day or a few days or a week, and they're on the verge of a mental breakdown or something, going to maybe thinking about killing someone. Excuse me, but Srila Prabhupada just kept on doing that, just not sleeping much, traveling all over the world. I mean, traveling is a type of suffering. I mean, people think of it in a very romantic way, as they think of many things that aren't romantic in a romantic way, because they're an illusion. But they think traveling is like very, romantic and very pleasurable. It's not pleasurable at all, actually. Driving in a car, all the noise, all the pollution, getting on a plane with all the noise and being packed up in this yantra machine with all of these people eating a bunch of abominable stuff, watching a bunch of weird stuff, sharing the same air. I mean, cramped up in those little seats. God knows who you're going to sit by. If they're going to be whatever. Some people don't have a sense of personal space. You're lucky if you get somebody who has some common sense in terms of personal space. People just kind of moving, really close to you, sitting really close to you. It's just in all this rough air. You're flying and there's all this rough air. Yeah, recently I was flying again and there was some rough air. Yeah, turbulence. Number of times actually. Someone's there's some rough air and someone yelled, "Oh my God!" I guess that's good. They yelled out, "Oh my God!" Right? I guess it's better than something else, but yeah, it's actually a lot of suffering traveling. It's much easier, much more pleasant, much more natural just to be in one spot. You could really control things, health-wise and mentally and everything. But Srila Prabhupada, he was just traveling constantly. And of course, he was doing that for the pleasure of his spiritual master and for the pleasure of the devotees, and for the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness. So in this way, it was a great pleasure in the sense because it was for higher purpose. He wasn't he wasn't traveling for sense gratification. But it seems like he was working hard, and it also seems that the devotees were working hard. And at the time, Srila Prabhupada had a whole plan in his mind, which was very impressive. Like Govinda Dasi, she said that Srila Prabhupada would just be sitting with some of his disciples. They're 18, 19 years old, whatever. Some of us are a little older than that. You could understand what it means to be 18, 19 years old. I think everybody's older than that now. But Srila Prabhupada would just spin the globe and he would say, "Oh, Gaurasundar, you go to this place, and Brahmananda, you go to Japan." And Prabhupada was telling the devotees to go to these places. And he wasn't just like, having some pep talk or something like, "Yeah, we'll do it eventually and we'll go. Like, we'll eventually go there." But Prabhupada was like, "You go here," and he would send them there. He would get a ticket and go, get out of here. So, so they were working very hard, and that missionary spirit that Srila Prabhupada had, and that he really instilled in his disciples, his early disciples, is a very important thing to have. Of course, not everybody is expected to live like that or have that type of mood, but some should, because it's really a missionary movement, and without that, things really die. And it's sometimes a criticism in people's minds. There's so many criticisms in people's minds. Maybe 1,000 a day. In the mind, you go after this person, go after that person, or the society or whatever. So many criticisms, but one of the criticisms is that the missionary spirit is waning, or in some cases just gone. Like the Hare Krishna temple is like a church. You just come once a week and everybody feels good, and everybody pats each other on the back and tells how wonderful, great a person you are and how religious you are, and do some rituals and you go home. But the expansion aspect, sometimes people they're critical that it's not really there, even amongst people who should be expanding things, like sannyasis or leaders, pushing themselves or others to do that. If you look at Mormonism, which they don't really like being called that, by the way, they're not Mormons. It's a bit of a, I don't want to say derogatory term, but their book is called Book of Mormon, so they just call them Mormons. But they're called the Church of Latter-day Saints. But if you look at their system, despite us heavily disagreeing with them philosophically, although devotees tend to think that they're nice people and that they follow at least a few of the principles that we like, that the Karmīs don't like, that are mentioned here, the 4 regulative principles. They follow a few of them, in a sense. Like, for example, any Mormon, they don't drink caffeine. Or they don't take any intoxication, for example. But if you look at them in terms of how they feel they should expand the church, it's quite impressive. Of course, people may argue that, well, if you try to spread something that's not true, it will spread quick because people will sign up for things that aren't true. Someone may make that argument, but at least they're doing it. At least they're trying. In other words, at least they're organized about it. They take the money of their congregation and they do something good with it, like open a church somewhere. And they do that. I mean, if you just look at San Diego County, there's 20 of them, at least 20 churches. But that's just one thing. I mean, even more impressive is that if you go into any of their lobbies, like their temple, their church lobby, you'll see a map there of the world. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he would spin the globe and say, you go here. They put a map in their lobby, and they put pins there. And this is where we're sending our girls and boys, our just out of high school. We're going to teach them how to speak Spanish, and we're going to send them to Mexico City. And then they're going to go out door to door and preach the gospel for 2 years. And of course, you could say, "Oh well, it's not Book of Mormon is not true," and yeah, well, they get so many people signing up because it's not true, and they have money and whatever. You come up with so many different types of things, how they're wrong and this and that, but they're doing that, and it's good. So, what about Montana? There's no center in Montana. Why? There's a wonderful college there with so many thousands of students. Why isn't there a center there after so many years? And whatever, I've been in the Hare Krishna movement almost 20 years. I could ask myself that too. And I'm not pointing to, I'm just saying it seems that Srila Prabhupada would want that. What about New Mexico? Why isn't there a center in New Mexico? Oh, we don't have the money, and we don't have the people, and who will go there? I mean, with a little organization, a little money, and a couple of people, you could go there and do something. You could say, well, what about San Diego? Okay, well, what about San Diego? I mean, Srila Prabhupada started a temple, and then he would tell people to go other places. That's what he did. He'd tell people to go other places. So it seemed like the devotees were working very hard, and it's true. Srila Prabhupada was working hard, the devotees were working hard, and we should think about that. in our lifetime we should try to expand and to do something that is new in the sense that it's an expansion and that it's something for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, something that is very radical in a sense. Just like devotees in Turkey, I mean, it's they're gradually printing Srila Prabhupada's books in Turkish language. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, you could say it's a small thing or whatever, but it's a great accomplishment. Srila Prabhupada would say when a new book was published in a new language, he would say as if he was conquering an empire. So, so how do we understand that? Because it seems that the devotees were working hard, but Srila Prabhupada's saying here that, what does he say? That without working very hard. They're getting immense opportunities without working very hard. Does anybody have any? What do you think, Sankashan? Yeah.
They don't have to try so hard to get the opportunity to serve Krishna.
Because Krishna's making arrangements?
To get an opportunity to serve. It's like they don't have to go out seeking for it, just kind of available to them.
It's just Krishna's arranging it. Yeah. Yeah, so we could see like that the devotees are putting out energy, they're working hard, but we could see that in many ways throughout Srila Prabhupada's life and his preaching and his inspiring the devotees, that things happen quite naturally. There were quite a few instances of things which were just amazing. That they were working hard in a sense, but to the degree that they were successful at that time, it seemed like they would have had to work a lot harder to reach that success. Just like meeting an important person like George Harrison at the time, and so many devotees became attracted to George Harrison's preaching and his songwriting and therefore Krishna and Krishna consciousness. They just loved it. He was one of the most popular people at that time. So with one, you could say, one person, so much was done. That's an example. Another example is Siddha Swarup, who was Sai before. He is a big guru in Hawaii. I mean, very famous, very charismatic. He had quite a number of disciples, his students. And then he decided to become a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And you know what he did? He surrendered all of his disciples to Srila Prabhupada. He said, just take them. And then all of a sudden, all these temples, they were sent all over, and you'd see all these disciples that used to be Siddha disciples. So just with one person, Srila Prabhupada managed to, I forgot how many was it, 80 devotees? Something like that. It was really quick. It's another example. There's so many. What about the Fisher Mansion? I mean, that place. I mean, I never went there, but excuse me, I haven't been there yet. But that place is, from what I'm told, is just. It was an extremely expensive property. And Srila Prabhupada just went there and he said, we want to buy this property. And he had a couple of disciples. Again, with one person could do a lot. You have Ambarish. He just happens to meet Ambarish, Alfred Ford, who just happens to have a lot of money because of his connection, family connection, and then they buy that property. And for a very good price. And as Srila Prabhupada said one time, that just for the amount they bought that property for, just one room itself cost that much. And there was many rooms, mansion. Very famous, expensive mansion. So that's another example. Or Ambarish, again, Ambarish, he also bought the Hawaii temple, the Honolulu temple. I mean, that's a grand achievement there, temple in Honolulu. Or you have the TOVP coming up. I mean, largely this is from Ambarish Maharaj. Prabhu would call him Ambarish Maharaj. It's from Ambarish Prabhu. So, what would usually take a lot more time, a lot more energy, a lot more work, Srila Prabhupada achieved easily by engaging certain people, or by them taking to Krishna consciousness. So that's one way to see that. Here, but it says for karmi, they have to work very hard. They have to work very hard. You want to have a big fancy house in Honolulu? Got to work pretty hard. You want to somehow either break a deal with George Harrison in which you become famous and you get a lot of money or whatever. You have to work pretty hard to get a position in which George Harrison will be impressed and maybe he'll help you. You want to, so for karma, you have to work very hard, and aside from that, their achievements are temporary. It's just some temporary material achievements. And Srila Prabhupada, you could say nicely here, he says, and sometimes it's frustrating. Prabhupada usually says, right, he always talks about karmis and how it's always frustrating, but Prabhupada says here, and sometimes it's frustrating. Because even if you may somehow or other, through karma or through your work or this or that, or a combination of both, you may come to some platform where you have a good material life, but even if it's not frustrating, it's temporary. You have to analyze things and just say, oh, well, it's temporary. This good life of mine is going to end. I'm going to get old and I'm going to die and it's over. It's temporary. Let's say dukkhalayam ashashvatam. This world it's full of misery, and someone say, okay, it's full of misery, but for me it might be good, it might be great, but then Krishna says, well, it's temporary. So however you look at it, but in Krishna consciousness, everything is encouraging and improving. So I hope we feel like that. I hope everybody feels encouraged, and I hope everybody feels things are improving. That's what Srila Prabhupada says here. He's not lying. He's not making things up. So we should feel like that. I'm feeling encouraged. I'm feeling things are improving. Or else we should analyze, try to make some adjustments in our life. So lastly, it's not very popular with the Karmīs, because this movement recommends that one refrains from illicit sex, meeting, and gambling, intoxication. So we could understand how it wouldn't be so popular amongst Karmīs, which the vast majority of the civilization is Karmīs. So it's not a great surprise that people are not lining up to join such a movement because of the restrictions. And if you were to do away with the restrictions, how many initiated devotees we would have? Some people, but some people, they have a hard time just giving up very easy things. like what? We would say it's very easy to give up meat. I mean, tea. Some people have a hard time giving up tea, or coffee, or cigarettes, or onions, or whatever. So what to speak if we just said, all right, everybody at this, we'd probably have like at least 500 devotees initiated. At least. I mean, if we just like did away with the restrictions. The altar would be packed up. You'd have to wait in line to do an arti. You'd have to beg, to dress Radha Giridhari if the restrictions were all gone. But they're not like that. There are restrictions, and therefore, people, even very pious people, have a hard time following these sometimes. So it's a challenge. So they don't like it very much. But Srila Prabhupada says, nonetheless, in the presence of so many enemies, this movement is progressing. So it's still progressing, going forward without impediments. But we shouldn't take it as automatic. We should take it that it is our responsibility to see that it's progressing and that it's going without any impediments. In other words, every member has a responsibility to try to carry things on. If the devotees continue to spread this movement, dedicating life and soul to the lotus feet of Krishna, no one will be able to check it. So, as Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say, and as we've seen, that externally it cannot be checked. The governments try to shut us down. Parents try to dissuade us. Our own mind and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles that devotees just plow through. They're just not letting. They go to jail. They go to prison. I mean, they just don't let things get in the way. We've seen this historically, but what we've also seen historically is that sometimes in certain places and sometimes in certain people's lives, Krishna consciousness has been checked due to their internal issues. Or internal issues means within oneself, or internal issues means in the temple or in the community. Internal issues that people who come on Sunday don't see. They see everything's growing outside, the deities are nicely dressed, and the prasadam's coming out, and everything's clean, relatively clean, this and that. And so you don't really see in the internal issues, but those living in the temple or in the community, they understand there's internal issues, which, if those aren't checked, it will stop one from progressing in Krishna consciousness, or it will stop a community from progressing in Krishna consciousness, or at least stunt the growth. So we want to clearly understand what are those internal issues that are holding me back. What are those internal issues that are holding the community back, and try to solve them and try to move forward. Much of this is dependent on communication, clear communication, which is not common in Kali Yuga whatsoever. Clear communication's like, I don't know, it's like a thing of the past or something. Not even maybe a thing of Satya Yuga, but there just needs to be clear communication between individuals, between teams, between each other, with ourselves, clear communication with ourselves, and clear planning. And then there's some hope of progress, but so, and then Srila Prabhupada ends it, chant Hare Krishna. It's interesting. I don't know if he ends any other purport like that. Chant Hare Krishna. Okay, does anybody have any? question or comment?
I have a question which maybe we don't even have an answer to, like an historical question. When Siddhaswarupananda surrendered to Srila Prabhupada, and then we say he surrendered his disciples to him, but then you could say, well, just because he surrenders his disciples doesn't mean they all surrender. And
They agreed.
So was there any exception? Did any of his disciples say, you have faith in this man, but I had faith in you, but not this man? Do we know of anyone who didn't accept Srila Prabhupada?
That's an interesting question. All I have heard is that it's that because he was so charismatic, Sai, I mean, he was just like really, like they just loved him, and people still love him. He still has his own movement there in Hawaii, and actually it's the biggest bhakti movement in Hawaii now. I don't know with their restrictions or this and that, but they're all getting together and doing these amazing kirtans in Hawaii, like tons of people. So all I have heard is that because he was so charismatic and people loved him, and they were his disciples, like sold-out disciples, then they just went with Srila Prabhupada. Now, have I heard of anyone not going? No, I haven't heard that. But we do have some contacts, like Ashram Maharaj, he may know, because he was there from the early days. Also, Kusha was one of his followers. Mm-hmm. So they may know. You'd think maybe some of them would just say, forget about it, but the main thing I see is that they went.
Okay. Because I was thinking that in ISKCON even there are some devotees who have disciples, and they may say to their disciples even that I have faith in this god brother of mine, and I encourage you to, maybe after my departure even now, I encourage you to also have respect for him and seek out his advice and so on. And not all those disciples do. They think, I have faith in you, Guru Maharaj, I don't have faith in this god brother that you have faith in. Kind of odd. No, I'm not saying it's odd, but anyway. I had a second question. Actually, the second thing wasn't a question. It was just regarding this concept of the Karmīs are working very hard, and then the devotees aren't working hard, or we could say comparatively they aren't working hard. But one thing I was thinking is that the non-devotees, they can struggle very, very hard, and they actually still can't work past their karma. So there's still a limit of results they could ever achieve just due to their karma, and which isn't the same rule for devotees. So someone maybe has the karma they can make $1 million in a year or something like that, and they work so hard for it, but others may work equally hard, twice as hard, to get that $1 million in a year and just never achieve it, because they have their karma that they're also fighting against. And whereas the devotees, if they're surrendered to Krishna, there is no limit to the results they can achieve. Whereas Karmīs have these, non-devotees have these limits.
Yeah, it's a good point. Might be in your karma cards to achieve a certain amount of money, but if you're a devotee and Krishna wants it, and it's for his mission and plan, then you may achieve so many things. So, in that way, the devotees are very fortunate that they're not bound by their astrological calculations and charts. Just like someone recently, some astrologer told one devotee recently, oh, I've read your chart. And he just said, anyways, just chant Hare Krishna. And it was, in other words, from that expression, it didn't seem like he wanted to tell him what was on his chart, because it seemed kind of limiting or maybe depressing, maybe frustrating. So he just said, which generally, okay, there is something to those charts in my experience if you get a good astrologer, but still, even though that's generally there, things can change for a devotee drastically. So that's good. But for somebody just ordinarily living, then I understand there is no change. It's just that's how it's going to be, no matter what. So.
Sankarshan's saying that's why he's broke even as a devotee, but maybe that was just in his cards before, it's in his cards now. And we can still say, like Balaram was saying, that still we are contending with these factors, and just because we're trying to surrender to Krishna doesn't mean that all of our cards are different. But at least we know that while that's what we're contending with, still Krishna can change anything,
Yeah.
depending on the dedication and so on. So Krishna can see, and we aren't bound by it to the same degree.
Yes, Dujoy? Money.
Thank you, Balaram Prabhu, for a wonderful class. You just mentioned about clear communication, and since you mentioned that, emphasized that in class, that means that you have experienced clear communication in dealing with devotees. And I'm wondering, is that a byproduct of your advancement in Krishna consciousness, that you have clear communication, or is it something you aspire for separately, and how necessary it is for your growth in Krishna consciousness to have clear communication?
Well, I mean, say all good qualities develop or awaken somebody who attains Krishna consciousness. But then, still, we practice, and Srila Prabhupada wrote the 26 qualities of a devotee on a piece of paper, and he posted in the New York Center. And he wanted devotees to meditate on those and try to exemplify those, try to practice those qualities. Like if you say, well, when I become advanced devotee, I'll become kind. So, all right, I'm just going to wait till I become like really Krishna conscious, and then that kindness will manifest. But we should be conscious of it now and try to practice that kindness. Because you could say even if we don't feel like being kind, we should. It's a good thing to do. It's pleasing to Krishna, for example. So in terms of communication, I mean, it's not that when one becomes advanced devotee, they automatically become like a good manager, for example. There's many advanced devotees who aren't good managers. I mean, somehow Srila Prabhupada had all of that. But it doesn't mean that you become advanced and that happens. I mean, of course, you have Gaurkishordas Babaji, who's a bit extreme. Means it's an extreme example. He's an extreme example in the sense that he was quite intense with his communication. He would tell people to, pretty much get lost, in certain language. But he was the most advanced devotee. And he also didn't really know how to, he was illiterate. So you may be a very nice devotee, but that doesn't mean automatically you have communication skills. You may be a pure devotee, but it doesn't mean automatically you have communication skills. Just like recently, one devotee was telling me, he's a married devotee, he's married to another devotee, and he was telling me that there's some issues in their marriage. And he was telling me that they had to go to marriage counseling. And he said it was quite embarrassing. And they went to a devotee marriage counselor, by the way. But the devotee marriage counselor was sitting there, and she was saying, okay, how does that make you feel? And then he would respond, and she would say, don't tell me, tell her. And then she would tell her, okay, how does that make you feel? Okay, tell him. Okay, look at each other. Talk to each other. Okay, now the next question. He said it was quite embarrassing, actually, because he said, I'm an adult, it's like, why do I have to? But he said somehow or other they weren't doing that in the relationship. There wasn't clear communication. So that's an example. And they're very nice devotees. It's not this, he's a very nice person. He's a very nice devotee. I mean, very wonderful qualities. Very intelligent and devotional and first, second initiated, and she's also very nice, come from a devotee, So sometimes those things may need to be practiced or learned Because you may be a wonderful devotee in the sense of you're very strict with sadhana or spiritual practices, or you're very devotional, or you have good qualities and all that, and that's good, that's there. But still, that communication aspect may need to be sharpened or developed and better utilized to have like better relationships with people. And and that's very common. Like I just gave this example of this couple. I mean, and whether you're a brahmachari or whether you're a grihastha or vanaprastha or sannyasi, communication is very important. I mean, we're humans. That's how we don't just like grunt. It's like grunt or make some noise, like move, or like make a grunt, and like that means to move, or like we talk with each other, so we have to communicate. And the faster we can learn that, the faster it's easier to be a brahmachari. It's either whatever somebody wants to do. What about a sannyasi who doesn't? He has a hard time communicating with disciples, or for example, or with a community. I mean, so yeah. And part of that just means expressing what one's feeling, how one feels, what they're thinking, how they're processing, asking questions. Hey, Prabhu, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. I see your behavior with me like this. Like, let's talk about, ask some questions. And then it brings clarification, rather than a typical thing that I guess statistically men tend to do, is they just like bottle things up. Just like keep it inside, whatever it is, just like, suppress it, just keep it there, but it doesn't work. And when people may get away with that as a brahmachari to a degree, but, you try being married and doing that. It's just like, there's a lot of frustration there building up. But I think there's a lot of frustration in other ashrams too, but sometimes it may seem easier to, do something like that in other ashrams. But anyways, so I don't think that fully answers, because there was a number of points to your question. Maybe that just answered like one point to a degree of your question.
Yeah, maybe we'll continue.
Okay. All right, Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.